Hello, everyone. I am Julia Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness. And before we get started, I'm going to share a little bit of news with you. I still have a couple of personal training clients left from my old life because my promise to them was as long as you show up for yourself, I'll show up for you as well. And anyway, I was talking with that client in the morning, and when we were done with her workout, and she was asking me about when I was getting a new kit, and I said, "Oh, I'm not," because ours had passed away recently. And then I said, one will find us, and then we'll be ready. And hand to God, that day my husband reaches out to me with a kitten, and he says, "What do you think?" They found this one on the street. It's a friend of mine. But here's the fun part. We think we're going to name him Steve. I don't know why I think that's so hilarious, but to name a cat by like this human name is really funny. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. I just wanted to share the fun news with you guys. But I have this amazing guest today, and she is so multifaceted. She has her hand in a few different things, and hopefully we'll get to talk about more than one of her specialties. But it depends on how far down the rabbit hole we go. Anyway, let me introduce you guys to Jessica Lawrence. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Julie. Excited to be here today.
So glad to have you. And I'm so glad for those that are watching, I was saying to her about how I was thinking she might not be here because I thought my email might go to spam. So, woo!
Yeah, we are all good.
Anyway, I would love for you to share a bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I have a real estate business. So I have a short-term rental business that I focus on. So I manage that business, do the property management, do the finances, sales, all the different hats for the real estate business, which has been really fun. And then I also have been in finance essentially for most of my career. So over, 14 plus years in different facets of finance. So, portfolio management, lending, personal finance, corporate finance, doing that financial management on the actual books and things like that. So, any of the finance questions, I'm definitely down for. And because I think it's such an important topic for us to kind of chat about, but then, also have some passions with writing books and creating courses. So I've shared a little bit of my journey with a book called Picky Eater, where I used to be an extremely picky eater and have overcome that picky eating and have my own health and wellness journey around that as well. So that's just a little bit to kind of get started.
Yeah, I love this. And what I think I'm curious about finance in particular, because especially for women, it seems to me like that would be more of a male dominated area. I don't know if that's accurate. Is it?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
um, but then here's the thing that comes to mind too about finances is, and this is an American thing. This isn't like a universal thing. I mean, maybe North America in particular, but I know that there's a lot of, we don't talk about what we make. There's a lot of secretive, we don't share knowledge about how we make money or how we save or all these sorts of different things, especially women, because it's kind of like, as women, we also tend to rely on the husband or the children or whomever to help take care of all that for us. And I know that you specialize in helping people with that in particular. What is something that, I'm going to jump right in. What is something that you wish everybody knew?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a huge kind of mindset that we have to kind of talk about a little bit more because there's this hesitation to talk about finance, to talk about money, to even look at money, to look at your bank account. And so, one of the things that I really recommend, especially when it comes to finances, because is really just to start with awareness, like start with looking at your bank account, and kind of just beginning the process of being like, okay, I'm going to start understanding what my numbers are, start understanding what my finance situation is so that I can start to improve it. because I do feel like there's a lot of fear around the financial industry, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult feeling like there's somebody you can trust to talk about it, especially when you're worried about your finances and what to do next and all of that. So first step I would just say is to really begin looking at your bank accounts, and kind of start there.
I'm really glad that you said that because there have been times where because now you can look on your phone. I've been like, what's in there?
Yeah, yeah,
And,
I get it.
or I mean, it's a little crazy that it's money. It's not that big of a deal, but we make it into like this big behemoth. At least I do. In my mind, it turns into this huge thing and it's like this almost monster. My dog barks at, we call it the snake monster. I'm referring to the vacuum cleaner. But he loves to bark and growl at the snake monster. But that's what finances are to me, something I could see it, but it's so scary to me that I want to bark and growl.
Yeah, yeah, no, I understand it, and trust me, a lot of people feel that way too, where they're like, "Ugh, I really, I don't wanna look and it's scary," and but, the numbers are gonna be the same whether you look at them or not.
A really good point, and it's kind of like same thing with exercising and diet, nutrition, all of that. When you go work out or you're going to work with somebody in that field, what do they want to do? They want to weigh you. They want to know what you're eating, and those are scary things to look at too.
Yeah.
If you're not pleased with what you're like looking at in the mirror, what you're experiencing. So I feel like it's very similar across the board. Did you I just thought of that right now. Have you ever thought of that in particular?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's so many similarities when it comes to finance and to with like your health and wellness and being able to track things to be able
Mhm,
to make progress. Because I mean, yeah, the numbers are the same. They're there. So, it's our reaction to them that we're worried about, because when we look at them, we're going to be analyzing the decisions we've made. And
mhm,
so if you just come to it knowing like this is what it is and that's okay, and I'm trying to improve. I want to see what to do next. It can take a little bit of that fear away, because, you know, they're just the numbers reflecting past behavior.
mhm,
Doesn't mean it has to reflect future behavior. And there's always a way to improve your finances, right? And the place to start is knowing, where am I beginning? The same as with health. Like, where am I beginning so that I can then track my progress, um, going forward? So, really, you need those benchmarks, uh,
mhm.
in both.
Yeah. Something you said that I really want to highlight because you just said it in passing, but I think it's really profound. And that is that we're afraid of our reaction. Our brains try and protect us from feeling uncomfortable or scared or anything that we deem negative. So, of course, if we're afraid we're not going to like what we see, then no wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, really, because like you're just taking a look at what has happened in the past,
Mhm,
right? And and another thing that can come up too is like the confusion of like, I'm not even sure where to look or what to do and that sort of thing as well. And so we can be scared of, okay, I see it and you know, I'm not happy with it, but I don't know what to do about it. And then you get frustrated, right? You have that confusion, there's that frustration, because you're like, okay, maybe I know what it is now, but I don't know how to change it. And so there can be that piece of it as well, right? Is these different emotions that come up when you're looking at your finances, looking at your numbers, for your personal finances or your business finances.
I mean, we've been talking about it in the negative sense, but I think a lot of people don't realize that even it like it works on the other side of the spectrum as well. If you have a lot of income or a lot of and you don't know what to do with it,
Yeah. Yeah.
that can be just as stressful.
There can be a lot of responsibility there too, right? And so you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, where it's like sometimes, we kind of have that responsibility placed on someone else, whether it's a husband or a partner or a financial advisor or someone else in our life. We're kind of like, I'm not sure I know what I want to do with this, so like they'll handle it.
Mhm.
But it kind of is still that, like, we need to face it, we need to see it, we need to understand it so that we can progress with what we want to improve with our finances, which will make it so much better. And so on the positive side of things, right? I've had cases where when I've sat down with someone and we kind of look through everything, to kind of break through the confusion, like what does your profit and loss statement look like? What does your balance
Mhm.
sheet look like? Um, on the business side. But if it's, your personal finances, just what does your income and expense statement look like? What does your net worth statement look like? And I've actually had people be very like happily surprised that they have more net worth than they thought, because they just didn't know how to organize the information. That's all.
Mhm.
And so we get caught up a lot in the income and expense in those monthly, transactions every single month. But one that can be really helpful is like taking that step back and being like, okay, what does my net worth look like? What are all my assets? What are all the things that I own? And what are all my liabilities, the things that I owe? And what am I left with? Right. And you can kind of see like, oh, maybe I've purchased a home. And so I actually have, this asset that I've put some money into it, and I have a higher equity. So you never know. Like there are definitely going to be both. Like you're gonna see some things you might get on there and be like, ooh, I am like funding Amazon right now. But you might also be pleasantly surprised on a couple things that you're like, oh, I'm actually doing a little bit better than I thought, or maybe I have a little bit more income or places that I can cut back to create more income than I thought. So, it really is. You just have to look at it. It's different for everybody.
Exactly. Something that I was thinking about is, finances, in particular can be a little, I mean, we've just been talking about this. It can feel a little overwhelming. And I know that when I feel that way, it's almost like my brain shuts down and I can't comprehend things the way I normally would. So it's really hard for me to figure out what even people are saying to me. Um, but what I'm wondering about in particular, and this is why I'm mentioning this, is I feel like even if somebody else is handling something for me, I should have some sort of financial literacy so that I understand what is going on and I'm not just passing it off completely. Even if I do, I could step in and look at it
Right.
like we're talking about whenever. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I was actually just talking to someone, a lady about this yesterday. So, because I was talking about it in the business sense, there's different levels of financial management, financial understanding, right?
Mhm.
And the first, especially when it comes to business, is like just getting the numbers, just understanding the information, having it organized. And you can hire a bookkeeper or someone like that to help you get the numbers, right? It's looking backward, it's looking at the past, what has happened. So that's the first step. And then just like having that information gathered. We're often, for our personal finances, we're going to be doing that ourselves. We're not going to usually bring someone in to be putting together those reports in the way that we would with a business.
Mhm.
So, that's the first step, is just getting everything organized. And there's some great ways that you can do this too that I can share. The second step is reviewing it, is what I would call, you start doing some of the accounting where you're really looking at the numbers and analyzing them, understanding, hey, what does this say? Like, okay, I have a statement, but I don't know what it means. Does this mean, what does this number at the bottom mean? What do all of these individual numbers mean? So like the next step is interpreting it. Like
Mhm.
what do I see here? What does this actually mean? And then the last step is, how do I use that information to start making strategic decisions? Whether it's in my life or whether it's in my business, like, taking the information that you have, analyzing it, and then doing something with that information, making some sort of change, being able to make a different decision and kind of look forward. And so then we begin to enter this world of not just looking backwards and seeing what has happened, but forward planning, forecasting, budgeting. And this is the place where it really starts to get fun, because once you kind of are like, okay, I've got the information. Now I'm starting to understand the information and what's been happening. How can we then improve it? So when I say forecasting and budgeting, I say these as two different words because budgeting is really reflective of when you're looking at your previous expenses, what you spent. You're saying, okay, I've spent this much in previous periods, whether it's months, weeks. Usually we look at it monthly. Do I think I'm going to spend the same going forward? That's the budget. Or do I want to be spending less, more in these categories? That's just planning. So like we get scared of this word budget a lot because it's like budget means we're going to be restricted and we're not going to be able to have anything we want and all of that. But really, like, a budget is just a plan. You can plan it however you want. If you want to plan it for, $1,000 in Amazon spending, go ahead, just as long as you know what it is, right? And so that's the budget side is on the spending side. And then forecasting is actually in relation to the revenue side or your income. Forecasting, we're making an educated guess. We're forecasting what we think that money coming in is going to be. Now, if you have a pretty, typical like 9 to 5 W-2 job where you get the same income every month, you'll be able to forecast your income pretty well. It'll be pretty straightforward. If you have a business, especially a real estate business, for any of my short-term rental owners out there, you might have a very cyclical revenue cycle. So like I have a lot more income coming in the beach market in the summer than I do in the winter. So that's where you can think about like the forecasting on a business or a personal side. And when we look at this picture going forward, that's when we can say, hey, here's what I expect my income to be. I'm going to plan and budget what I would like for my spending to be to ensure that that bottom number at the end of the day is a positive one. Once you start ensuring that that's a positive number every single month, then we can start to have fun. Then we can talk about saving, investing, and all sorts of what are we going to do with this number, right? But there's two sides of that equation. So it's not just budgeting on the bottom. You can also increase the income on the top. There's multiple options there. So anyway, we went down a little bit on that one, but
oh, I'm glad that you did. I just keep on thinking there was one thing that my aunt, she was a really she was a CPA and she was really good at what she did. And I remember when she sat me down to budget, she asked me what all my yearly expenses were, the ones that come up once a year kind of thing, so that I could save for it all year. So it wasn't like this huge chunk all of a sudden at that time. And I thought, I mean, it's so obvious, but I never thought about it like that before. I always dreaded, oh, this is coming up in October. I have to come up with an extra $800. Whereas if I had just saved all year long, then I would have had it and it wouldn't have been like, oh, I got
Yeah. I mean, and truly, because what happens is, I like talking about there are unexpected expenses that come up. This happens, right? But what we know is you will always have unexpected expenses that come up, right? So it might be a surprise what that expense will be, but not the fact that you're going to have one. So it always happens. So we can plan for certain things like an annual, membership or annual subscription we know is coming. If we see it, we pay for it every single year. We're like, okay, we can start to plan for that. But then sometimes your car breaks down, or sometimes you have something happen in the business and you're like, oh, I wasn't planning for this. Well, I can guarantee everybody always has things like that come up. So even though I can't tell you what that surprise is going to be or what that unexpected expense might be, what you can do is you can plan for it anyway by putting aside a little bit of money in a savings account, a reserve account. I really don't care what you call it, an emergency fund. Pick an account, put some money aside for it because something will happen throughout. Yeah.
This is what it is.
Right. And so there's, there's these monthly expenses that we're looking at, there's annual expenses that we're looking at, like what's happening every single year, what can we forecast, and then also give yourself a little space for like there might be something that I missed. Something might happen,
Or
and
even
like
when
just
yeah, or even, I'm sorry to interrupt, but even like I've planned to the hills come home, but there's certain things I just forget about. I'm like, oh yeah, I knew that was coming. Oh yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so you can forecast for it ahead of time and be like, oh, we get busy. We get busy, right? Like there's a million things that we're trying to think about and plan for. But you know what? Christmas comes every year. It's every year. It's it's the same time every year. Same
Yeah.
time with like exact same thing with Hanukkah, right? It's every single year. So I feel like a lot of times we'll be like, we get to the end of the year and it's like, oh, we gotta, you want to
Yeah.
save up for holidays and things like that. And it's like,
You knew it was coming.
it's gonna come every year. So like we can start to plan and you can start to put it aside on a monthly basis, so that you take away some of that stress. You take away some of that worry about, oh, what's coming, and oh my gosh, I have to like scramble now and figure out where I'm gonna come up with this.
I love that. On that note, it is time for us to go to a commercial break. So we're going to be back in just a minute. And for those of you who are watching us live, thank you so much for being here. When we come back, we're going to talk about Jessica's piece de resistance, vacation rentals and rentals in general, because ladies, this could be a totally awesome income source and you just don't know about it. We'll be right back.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's bring our guest back. Welcome back, Jessica.
Thank you.
So before we hop into vacation rentals, you've written a couple of books, and I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit because I just think that it's really important that people get the opportunity to know more about you and also learn. So, can you tell us a little bit about both of these books?
Sure, yeah. So, Picky Eater was actually my first book because I used to be an extremely picky eater. And like when I say extremely, I mean extremely, like no rice, no pasta, no meat, no veggies. So I was on the, bread and cheese diet, so to say. I had a lot of grilled cheeses, French fries. So I was an extremely picky eater growing up, and which was, very challenging for me, but also challenging for my parents, and not knowing what to do or, how to find the right type of help. And so um, I was able to overcome my extremely picky eating while I was living in Europe for a little while. And so I just wanted to share what I learned, some of the insights that I had, some of the guidelines, because there really is some step there, not is, there really are some steps that you can take to be able to improve your picky eating. And I know that a lot of families will see this with their younger kids and try and figure it out. And so, like, coming at it from the angle of being an adult and being able to like think through the things that helped, that you can kind of apply with your child. So anyway, that's my very first book. It's like, started me on this whole journey. So, there, for anyone that is a extremely picky eater out there or has a picky eater, there are some things that you can kind of do to help move that along. And then the Face Your Finances is about finance. So this is just, my book. I wanted to share about financial management. I wanted to get some of that information out there on how, you can understand your finances, and it does not have to be as complicated as everyone in the financial industry would like us to think. Especially coming from, the lending banking world, very male dominated. I'm like, there's so many different terms, there's so much confusion around this topic. And I'm like, we can just distill this down to a couple statements and things that you really need to be able to know. And I promise, if you know basic math, like, you can do this. So as long as you pass, that add, subtract, divide course, like, you can really get a handle on your finances. And so I really just wanted to share strategies and try and make that a lot more simple and straightforward than I feel like it's been in the past. So that's a little bit about them.
I love that. Real quick before we get into the real estate side of things, I just who hasn't met a picky eater, especially kids? So bless you for making that or writing that book, because
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have kids of my own, but I do have a pet that is a picky eater, and it's like so frustrating, especially because he can't communicate with me. I'm just like, come on, dude, what do you need? What do you want?
Yeah, yeah, it really is. It's a huge challenge. It's really hard. And like, there are different there's different levels and there's different time frames. And so that's where I feel like it's really important, especially when it comes to picky eating with like young kids,
Mhm.
that like, just because you heard one no at one point in time doesn't mean it will always be a no. So like, when we're adults, we're kind of like, oh, we try something new. If we don't like it too much, we're like, yeah, I have a pretty good sense of my palate at this point.
Mhm.
When they're so young, like, they need to try it 7, 10, 12 times before they can even, create an opinion on what they think about this new food. Because when you're little, when you're young, your body is trying to make sure that you don't poison yourself, that you don't eat something toxic. So the reaction, especially to things like vegetables and stuff like that, is going to be like, ugh, it's bitter, it's acidic. But anyway, so yes, it is really something that I struggled with, and I'm thrilled to be able to eat everything now. So if anyone ever has questions, please reach out.
Well, it's funny too. I mean, my husband might be upset with me for throwing this little tidbit out there. Actually, your taste buds do change, by the way, for those of you, like I remember I wouldn't eat hollandaise sauce. It literally made me sick. Now I can have eggs Benedict if I wanted to, or even just like I could eat hard boiled eggs and scrambled eggs, but I couldn't have the yolk, runny yolk that made me sick when I was younger. So, I mean, it's very fascinating how that works, but my husband is a rather particular eater, and we've been together 3.5 years, so it hasn't even been that long. But up until about 3 months ago, he would not eat yellow tomatoes. He would eat red ones, but he would not eat yellow tomatoes. He just refused.
There's something about them, huh?
Yeah, just it was so funny to me. But I mean, we all have our things. But
Yeah.
anyway, something that one of the main reasons why I reached out to you in particular was this idea of creating an alternate source of income and something that you can, invest your money in. And I'd love for you to speak more about that, because that to me, I mean, I don't mean to put this on you, but like, I feel like that's your wheelhouse. And
Yeah. Yeah. So this is this is such an important thing, right? Because when we think about that income and expense statement, like especially women are like kind of almost trained and culturally like programmed to think only about the expense side of things, that you need to budget and you need to save, and you know there's a lot of emphasis on that side of the equation. But the income side of the equation, you know is endless. Like you can increase that in multiple different ways, whereas like on the expense side, there's only so much budget cutting you can do, especially when we have inflation continuing to rise and price of things continuing to rise. So we got to find other ways to like bump up that income side of the equation. And I like to think of it there are 7 different income sources. And so you can tap into any of these 7 different income sources to try and increase that side of the equation. So let's see if I can remember them all off the top of my head. So first is your W-2 income. So what you would think of as your typical wage income, right? This is where most people, get their income from, and oftentimes don't move outside of that income bracket. But there's another 6 that you can explore. and it's a good one to have, but like there are these other options too. So because oftentimes the W-2 income is very time dependent. It's usually a time dependent source of income. So, you're working for an hourly amount of time, not so much a results dependent income source. So it limits the amount that you can earn based on your employer. Now, let's see. The second one is interest income. So interest income is, something when you have a loan, right? You give a loan of money out and then you charge interest on it. So this is how banks get very, very rich is interest income. But you can also, obtain interest income using some of the same things that they do, some different things that they do. We hear about interest on our checking account, on our savings accounts, things like that. And those are options, and you should look at those types of interest income sources. But you can also earn it in other ways. There are so many different, basically platforms and programs and things where you can actually join to be lending out a little bit of your money and earn interest income on it. The most common way for people to invest and get interest income is if they're doing something like bonds in the market. Now, the other one that kind of pairs with this is dividend income. And dividend income, this is when, this is right where you go and you buy a stock, right? And so you can then earn a dividend from that company. So this is another source of income. And so really you're purchasing shares in that company when you buy, again, on the stock market, when you're doing some sort of investment in the market, and then you can earn these dividend incomes. Ideally, those come out on a consistent basis. So now, like when you're investing in this way, you're just like automatically earning this money, interest income, dividend income. That's why we like to start investing in the market. And this is also like easier than you would think. I know it feels scary to be like, I have no idea how to, go buy a stock and go buy a bond and all of this. But there's things now like robo-advisors. And so a robo-advisor, you can just sign up. Like Elvest is a women-based one, and you set your goals. You tell, the little computer, what you're trying to save for retirement, a vacation, baby fund, whatever it is. And then like it'll automatically invest for you. You can set up how, different requirements. And so there's really easy ways to start tapping into these two income sources. Easiest is with a robo advisor, but also, with a financial advisor, or you could do it yourself if you want to try, something like E-Trade where you really get in there and you're doing it all yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have capital gains income, right? So capital gains income and rental income kind of go hand in hand. And I'm going to talk a little bit about both of them because it's related to the real estate, which is why I invest in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you invest in real estate, you can not only get rental income off of your property, whether you're doing short-term, long-term, or mid-term, but you can also get capital gains when you sell it. So the same as when you sell on the stock market, you can, whatever you bought it at versus whatever you sell it at, you want it to be selling it for something higher than what you purchased it at. And the difference between those two is your capital gains and what you would then earn between this, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where you hear about like capital gains taxes, it'll tax on that income. So real estate, if you're trying to flip, you can do capital gains income, but if you're renting, you can get both rental income and you can have capital gains income eventually when you sell it. So you hit two income sources, which is great, depending on what your plan is. And then another income source is royalty income. And so this is, what we see in like the music industry, right? Mm-hmm. They put out a product and then you can earn royalty income. But you can also get that, by putting out digital products now, by putting out books, courses, you can earn royalty income or on music. And so again, it's this upfront effort of creating something, but then like creating additional income stream that'll continue going forward. And then the last income source is business income. And I think I hit them all. Yeah. So, and then if you create a business, the income that you are building in that business. And when you're doing a short-term rental business, you have now hit 3. Business income, rental income, and you also potentially could do capital gains income if you sell the properties within it. So I know that was like a little bit more on the income topic, but it's just really relevant when it comes to why I invest in real estate.
No, I'm really glad that you brought that up because that was fascinating, first of all, but also I have a question about capital gains, because I remember something from when I was a kid, but I remember my mom saying something to the effect of, I have to buy something so I don't have to pay capital gains. Does that make sense?
So
I might remember wrong, so I don't know.
Yeah, because the way it works is with capital gains, you're not taxed until you sell an asset. So,
okay.
So you buy.
Yeah, I think she was trying to reinvest before she had to pay the taxes or something like that. So maybe that's what it was.
There could be something there with like, the strategy.
She didn't want to pay the taxes. I remember that.
Yeah. Usually how it works is, you buy an asset if it's a house, like for a certain price, and then you sell it at a different price. The difference between these is your capital gains. Now, taxes is a whole topic in and of itself. There are lots of interesting things about taxes, especially when it comes to real estate as well, where there's a lot of tax advantages. There's a lot of strategies that you can kind of use to make sure that you get to keep your money and you're not taxed on that. So like one of them is, if you had, let's say your parents had a property and they wanted to like pass it down to you, it's actually more tax beneficial, like for them, instead of trying to just gift you the property or sell it to you, to just wait until they pass and then it passes to you because of capital gains, because whatever they purchase it at and then they sell it at, you'd have to pay this very big tax in between. But if they pass, there's this thing where it just automatically, as it's passed down to you, jumps up to the new value. And now all of a sudden you don't owe anything on capital gains taxes. So there's a whole lot of very interesting things when it comes to taxes in particular. But
That's a whole nother topic.
yeah.
All right. Well, we do need to go to one last commercial break, so we're going to be back in just a minute. And I said hello to everybody who's watching us live. Now it's time for me to say hello to everybody who's watching us on demand. We will be back in just a minute. And I promise when we come back, we're going to talk about those rentals. We'll be back in just a minute.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversation. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Welcome back, everyone. And welcome back our guest, Jessica. We are running low on time. We only have like about 10 minutes left. So I'm really hoping we could just jump right into it. And why don't you just share what we need to know? I know it's longer conversation than that, but maybe some highlights.
Yeah, I mean, so I have, short-term rental business. I think this is definitely a great way to kind of supplement your income. And I love it because for me, it's a lifestyle asset. I'm very passionate about kind of creating the lifestyle where we can have time freedom, financial freedom, and location freedom. And so me and my husband have a beach house down in Florida that we love. And, managing that property is fun and interesting and gives you, so much more income potential than with just a long-term rental. So
I like that idea too. And can't you hire somebody that would take care of all that stuff for you if you so desired?
you sure can. Yeah. There's definitely property managers that you can hire, but you can also get a virtual assistant. There's so many different pieces of this business. So, with a long-term rental business, like I started in long-term rentals. So I started when I first bought my very first property, like right out of college. And, I got it in an location that was great, that I really liked, that I knew, would be able to turn well, so that when I moved to Belgium for a couple of years, I was able to just long-term it out. Right. So I rented it, and figured out how to do all of the back end work and everything. But, with the long-term rental, you have a set income and lower maintenance. You can still get a property management company. With a short-term rental, you really are entering this hospitality business, this hospitality space. You have a cleaner that is coming, all throughout the month, whenever you have guests checking in and out. And so, one of the things that I've done that I think is really helpful is kind of outline what are all the different responsibilities when it comes to this business, and which ones do I want to continue to do, and which ones, can you have someone else come in and do? And so you can have a property manager come in and do a lot of it, but they're probably going to take, 20% of your income. And so, um, depending on how how well the property is doing, you might not have a whole lot left. You're just building equity, and that's okay too. It just depends on what your goal is.
Yeah.
Are you long term trying to just build equity and these properties and be able to visit them every once in a while, or are you trying to rapidly grow cash, or are you trying to rapidly grow your portfolio? So that's where, yeah, you can manage different aspects of it. Me and my husband have different responsibilities in our business.
You know what I like about the short term versus the long term? It seems like while, there's a lot more turnover, it seems to me like there would almost be less headaches because with the long, I mean, I just have experienced a lot of headaches with the long term rental world. Like people don't leave or they ruin the property or they don't say what's going wrong or all these different things that you assume everything's okay. or yeah, and then you walk in and then all of a sudden bam. But I love hospitality too, so that's kind of like why I was attracted to what you do because that speaks to me.
Yeah. So they're definitely different worlds, long-term world versus short-term world. One of the things I like about it is with long-term world, you have tenants essentially. With short-term world, you have guests, and you can decide whether or not you're keeping that guest, right? So I'll do an instant book most of the time, and there's things that you can do with the way you set up your business and your rules to like kind of filter people ahead of time, so you only get the types of guests that ideally will take care of your property, and not leave it a complete mess. But even if they do, they're gone after a week, and so then you can get in there and you can see when there's a problem. So you would think, and I've heard like, oh, well, short terms, there's going to be a lot more damage to the property. But my experience has been, I've had a long-term rental who never told me the sink was leaking until they checked out and were like, why didn't you just tell me? Because they feel like they're going to get in trouble or blamed, depending on that relationship. Whereas the guests are like, I'm here for a week. Hey, this isn't working.
Exactly.
Thanks for letting me know. So now I'm keeping my property consistently updated all the time. And there's the difference in wear and tear between guests and tenants. But like, it's, it really depends on the kind of guests or tenants that you have.
Exactly. And then what happens if they stop paying long term? Then you have to go through the whole eviction process, and that is expensive, and you got no income coming in. And they're probably ruining your place in the meantime. So
yeah, that's a big risk. I mean, like when it comes to kind of that front end on both both processes of making sure that you have really good tenants, really good guests, like that to me is the most important thing, because all the other stuff you can figure out, but there are different things that you can do to try and ensure that you have really good quality guests. And I just personally, my experience has also been like, I invest in places that I love, that I would want to live in, that I like the neighborhood, I like the location, because I understand the people that I can then filter them to know like, hey, is this person going to like it and appreciate it and love the house the way that I would? Whereas if you try and enter these spaces that you don't really understand, it can be a lot harder. That's just my personal.
Well, and plus it's almost like a timeshare because when you want to go to that area, you got a place to stay.
Oh yeah. Exactly. That's where for me, like our strategy is lifestyle business. So we invest in places that we love. We invest in places that we go because we have family there or, reason to travel there. I don't need a million different properties. I just want like really good ones in specific areas that I can use to enhance my lifestyle, not overwhelm it.
Exactly. I love this idea. I'd never, because I personally have been dead set against long-term rentals because of the experiences that I've had with it and my family has had. So But I love the short term because, like you said, plus that whole hospitality. I used to work in hospitality, so I missed it even. And the thing is like if they're you get in somebody you don't like, they're gone soon. So it's okay.
Yeah, get good insurance.
Yeah. Well, and I just mean even like personality, if they're a pain in the butt, because sometimes like when I was working tables in a restaurant, there's somebody that was just annoying me for whatever reason. They could have been perfectly fine. I just was annoyed by them. I knew that they were going to be gone soon.
Yeah. It is so true. I mean, you meet all sorts of different personalities in this business for sure. And some people are just lovely, just
Yeah.
truly lovely from beginning to end, will go out of their way to help, if something happens. And then there's other people that are, you just can't please. And it's like, all right, well, I'm done with them in 2 days. Like, goodbye. Like, and that's okay too.
It is. It's totally fine. Well, we only have about 2 minutes left. So I'm wondering if there's any final ideas that you want to share with us or something. It could be anything, or if you want to reiterate something.
Let's see. I mean, I would just say overall, like financial wellness, like just starting to look at your financial picture and kind of getting a handle on it is a good place to start. And then like if you're looking at getting into the real estate industry, like a short-term rental business, I highly recommend it for another income source. Just know that, it is going to be a business. It's going to take some time to set up but have fun with it. Like I think it's a great way to create the lifestyle. And just taking that first step is the most important. It's always the most important, is just taking the first step.
I love that because and I just want to pop your books up one more time because I think they're wonderful. So just so people can know, where can they buy these your books?
Yeah, they're both on Amazon, so you can go to Amazon. They're also available in audiobook format, so on Audible as well, depending on if you're a reader or a listener. You can find them both there, and there's links to them on my website too, so you can find them over there.
So we'll pop that up again. So I just wanted to say, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you today. You have been so much fun and so knowledgeable. There are so many things that I didn't even know or understand. And I like this. It seems doable now versus that big behemoth in the corner, like when you see the coat rack in the middle of the night is this scary monster. All you have to do is turn it on. All of a sudden it's okay again.
Yeah, definitely. It's been great being here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much. And everyone, this is all the time that we have for today. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to reach out to Jessica and enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you again very soon.